Uber is man, people that are working for Uber are apparently down bad.
Why does Uber win? Well, because it's rigged in their favor, right?
In 2023, a law professor published a paper with shocking implications. Her research found that tech firms like Uber and Lyft were using secret algorithms to dictate what drivers earn, based on factors we can't even see.
Wait, what?
She called it algorithmic wage discrimination.
What?
And this technology, or revolution, isn't restricted to rideshare companies.
Once that technology is in there, they can raise prices. On a hot summer day, I want a lot of ice cream, I want lemonade. They're running low, they can raise the price.
The price of milk, even your paycheck, the very fabric of our economy, all controlled by invisible...
There's dynamic pricing, yeah, for sure, because it's availability-based pricing. Yeah, sure, okay.
And unaccountable algorithms. So about a year ago, I started reaching out to the companies. They largely denied it, only to contradict themselves a few months later. Then I reached out to the academics, and one of the frustrating things was that the evidence seemed to be in the shadows. A single study, a hint in an earnings call, a story from a driver. It was mostly theoretical.
I don't think that Uber is entirely wrong for this yet. So basically, does a driver's driving history have any impact on the amount of money that they were offered for a ride? A driving history and then them saying that they're not using a person's personal characteristics like gender, race, or ethnicity, these two things are not related to each other. So if they respond like that, that's not them saying that they're not doing an algorithm. That's them saying that the algorithm isn't factoring in discriminatory in terms of because you can look at discrimination in just a dictionary definition versus discrimination in a legal definition, which is based off of gender, race, and ethnicity. Or past behavior. Yeah, but behavior or past behavior on our platform, like their ratings. Ooh, yeah, you're right. They didn't highlight that part. Why would you not highlight that?
Later was that the evidence seemed to be in the shadows. A single study, a hint in an earnings call, a story from a driver.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It was mostly theoretical. Until a few months ago, when I got an email from a guy. I had published a video that argued Uber's newfound profitability came at the expense of drivers and riders.
Oh, I could immediately believe that.
He said, we were at the tip of the iceberg. So I called him. We talked. 3 weeks later, I was on a flight to Los Angeles, looking to settle the question once and for all. Are rideshare companies offering drivers different rates for the same work? What I found put the legality of this whole tech revolution in question.
I think so.
They have broken every single local, state, federal law when it comes to labor, when it comes to transportation.
That's Sergio Avedian. He sent me the email. He's an experienced driver and a senior contributor at the Rideshare Guy, an influential resource for gig economy workers.
We were used to something called a rate card. We were used to getting paid by time and distance.
Then, overnight, the transparency vanished, replaced by a secret algorithm that takes into account potentially hundreds of different variables.
Yeah.
They called it upfront pricing.
Okay.
Uber's losses turned to profits around that same time.
I bet they did.
Coincidence? I don't know. Lyft followed suit, and now they claim they're on the path to profitability.
The algorithms are set up in a way to charge the rider as much as it's possible and to pay the driver as little as possible.
A lot of drivers feel Uber.
That's true, right? And that's why Uber and Lyft are popular. Like for me, I've used Uber multiple times, and this is really kind of what the problem is that I don't think that the actual customer cares whether the drivers are being taken advantage of. Like if you told somebody, don't use Uber because it takes advantage of its drivers, I can't see somebody acting on that information. Yeah, I don't care, right? Because like people just want to get to where they want to go and they want to be able to do it cheaper, right? It's good business. Exactly. Well, I mean, customers aren't going to care about like the working condition. It's like, you know, like we buy from Amazon, right? And like other things that are like way worse than that. That's not our problem. Yeah, exactly.
Uber and Lyft are paying
Because like
different
as somebody who's
wages
used Uber,
for
it's
the
been
same
very
ride.
useful for me.
But we don't really know because the companies, they aren't talking.
We're doing a very simple thing. We're picking up people point A to dropping off point B.
Yeah, sure.
I shouldn't make less money than the next guy. I should not. But because it's not regulated,
I don't think that's true, actually. I think that if somebody has a better driving history and they've had a proven level of success, that they should be paid more. And I think that if you look at this in any other industry, this is also the case. People that have worked in a job for a longer period of time usually have higher wages and higher salaries that have increased over time. This is seniority with anything. So I find this to be interesting that this is a problem. Why is this a unique problem with Uber when every other industry functions the exact same way? And it's merit-driven compensation. Yeah, exactly. Like, should somebody who's getting 3-star reviews constantly be getting paid the same amount who's somebody who's getting 5-star reviews constantly? I don't think that they should. Where's the fairness in that? Yeah, I'm not seeing this.
because we don't have rate cards, because we don't know what we're going to make, trip to trip, it's demoralizing, it's upsetting.
So with Sergio's help, we decided to test it.
Okay.
We called 7 experienced drivers
All right.
to a high traffic area
Let's
in
see
Los
it.
Angeles with the sole purpose of testing
Okay.
if rideshare companies are paying different rates for the same rides. At the start, each driver will activate their screen capture software,
Uh-huh.
open up the app, and place their phones on the table.
Right.
Why the table? Sergio has done similar experiments, and the rate disparities were blamed on location differences. When the experiments are done, the drivers will send their screen recording to Sergio's team,
Okay.
who will then sync and analyze the fares. And then we're going to see what's really going on.
All right. So what's the disparity here?
He's getting paid $1 more if he goes there, according to the map, and nobody else is. Nobody else is seeing that dollar surge.
We found Uber offered the same rides 46 times to multiple drivers.
Wow.
63% of the time, one of the drivers was offered a bit less money for
Okay.
the exact same ride.
They want to make few pennies difference, a few pennies on 2.7 billion trips a quarter, which is from the last earnings report, is millions, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, of course.
Lyft was even worse. The price gap wasn't just a little off, it was a lot off. We saw differences of up to $3 to $4 after bonuses.
Damn. Damn.
And drivers don't know why one person gets a bonus and another doesn't.
Well, that adds up like on 30 trips to 10 bucks a day. That's 300 bucks a month. Why should I get
I
paid?
would assume that they're probably not doing it algorithmically and including things that could be categorized as discrimination. Because paying employees based off of prior performance isn't against the law. I'm pretty sure that's actually how most companies work. So I'm not like, they're all 5-star too? Yeah, they are. They have the same rating? Yeah, but the rating probably isn't the only thing that they have that's being factored in. Both are 5-star? Yeah, but that's, you really think that that's the only grading metric that they have? What are we talking about? But an employee is informed. The issue is that it's hidden from them. It's illegal, I'm pretty sure. The employee is informed of everybody else's salary. No, they're not. If you're working somewhere, you don't know what everybody else's salary is. That's not true, but that's the thesis. The variables are unknown. Yeah, but once you start accepting low rates, you're going to be offered low rates. Ooh, that could be a good factor. So there could be a hidden, like, dark pattern inside of the algorithm that continuously gives people that accept low rates more low rates and people that don't accept low rates higher rates. Which, to be fair, is actually what happens in real life. Like, a lot of times people that are more aggressive with asking for a higher salary, on average, have higher salaries. So, man.
Less $300 a month than the other guy.
I contacted Uber and Lyft to see how they would calculate fares. Lyft, well, they never respond.
Yeah, they're not going to say.
Uber directed me to a blog post. When I explained the experiment's results, they replied by copying and pasting a portion of that same blog post.
Yeah.
The section outlines different reasons drivers could see different fares. But we controlled for everything that we could. We called see different fares.
Wait a sec.
Post.
Our technology models estimated times of arrival based on GPS location, which doesn't always perfectly correspond with their physical location. Surge depends on a driver's location. Surge heat maps. In order to continuously improve the driver's app, we run tests of new features and models that may result in different fares for drivers. Offers may include boost, like zero emissions incentive on top of the fare. Promotions may vary for city to city and week to week. So this actually could be true if different cars are getting a different rate.
The section outlines different reasons drivers could see different fares.
They accounted for all that? No, they didn't. They only accounted for what they could account for. That's what he said, which was two separate things.
But we controlled for everything that we could.
See?
We called the drivers to the same space.
Right?
Placed their phones inches apart.
Yes.
Had drivers monitoring incoming promotions and constantly refreshing their screen. The only thing we didn't account for was any secret test Uber could have been running at the time.
Sure.
Which we couldn't because the fare
secret.
algorithm is secret and the test is secret. There's a whole lot of questions here, like mainly, is this legal? And there's no laws against algorithmic wage discrimination.
Yeah.
That article I mentioned at the start suggests that opaque algorithms can easily facilitate violations.
Well, there are laws against algorithmic wage discrimination. That's actually not true, because if the algorithm is taking into consideration a person's race, gender, or sexuality, then yes, that would be against the law. So like any sort of so there are certain like protected traits that people have that you can't discriminate based off of.
Anti-discrimination laws. Uber denies this, but their own research reveals a glaring disparity. Women drivers earn 7% less than men, potentially due to algorithmic wage setting.
Okay.
But there's an argument that the entire business model is illegal.
From our perspective,
Where is it?
Uber's and Lyft's business model is based on control without responsibility.
That's David Seligman. He's the executive director of Towards Justice, a legal nonprofit that defends workers from corporate overreach. In
So where is it
2022, the
illegal?
organization helped lead a lawsuit on behalf of 3 rideshare drivers.
The lawsuit says if you are not an employer subject to and accountable to your workers under the labor laws, then you are powerful firms that are abusing your power under state antitrust, competition law, and unfair and deceptive acts and practices laws.
David is describing the cognitive dissonance rideshare operators have when classifying drivers.
Okay.
They want to have it both ways. Uber and Lyft classify drivers as independent contractors, not employers.
Yeah.
A crucial distinction. As an employee, you're making money.
Everybody does this. Not everybody, but a lot of companies do this to avoid having to pay different types of fees. Yeah, it's extremely common. You can't prove discrimination. An employer doesn't have to give you a reason they don't hire you. The law does nothing. Well, there have been plenty of companies that have been sued and fined for discrimination. Like, this has happened many times. And it was made against the law, and companies try to avoid doing that. Like, obviously it happens. I'm sure that people do get discriminated against and they don't get jobs. Of course it happens, but I'm sure people get in trouble for it. Are we trying to say, like, no company has ever lost a discrimination lawsuit? Like, what are we talking about here?
For someone else, which means benefits, protections, and a boss who can tell you what time to show up.
Yeah.
But as an independent contractor, you're supposedly making money for yourself.
Sure.
With no benefits or protections. But freedom, you're your own boss.
Yeah.
If these drivers are, as you say, independent, then they need to have true economic independence. We allege that the companies have denied them that economic independence.
Wait, what? Like, what are you talking about? They need to have economic independence. Like, I feel like that's like what?
most importantly, by taking away their ability to set prices for themselves.
But right now, Uber and Lyft set prices for riders and wages for drivers to maximize.
They are setting a price for themselves by accepting the price. It's the same as the company is. You're setting a price for yourself when you choose to take a job at a certain rate of payment. Like, I don't even understand. He means they should be able to decide how much they get paid. Well, they can. They choose not to take the ride if they don't think that it's enough money. Yeah, you absolutely have the ability to do that. Missing the mark here? Well, am I confused about something? No. Because I'm not understanding this. What am I missing here? They want to treat them like independent contractors, but they want to set their prices for them? Well, I'm really confused by that because, like, so I've had contractors do work for me, and unless a price is agreed upon, like, both parties have the ability to consent or not to consent to the business. I'm not understanding how this problem is. Yeah, they told you what the price is, and you chose to consent to this. I'm so confused. They can't negotiate it, though? Well, sometimes that's the same with any contract. That's not one-dimensional. And by the way, they can negotiate it by saying no. You're choosing not to understand at this point. The algorithm punishes them. They can't get work. Well, I'm not getting this. I'm sorry. I'm really not understanding this. Let me close this one. If they cancel, they don't get more rides. Are you saying that's not fair or not reasonable? Are you saying that Uber should not be able to do that? Of course they should be able to do that. It's not a negotiation between two parties. How is it not a negotiation? The IRS defines financial control for independent contractors versus self-employed. Yeah, the IRS is defining it, but they said usually and generally. And that doesn't mean it's a hard and fast rule. I'm not understanding where the problem is here. If they don't work on Uber's terms, they don't work at all. That's the same with any contractor. Of course that's true. The opposite would be like, yes, the opposite is slavery, that you have to work on somebody else's terms. I'm not understanding this at all. This is crazy to me. Like, I'm genuinely, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around where the complaints are coming from here, but I'm really not understanding it. Because logically, if I hire a contractor to, like, let's say, cut down a tree in my house, or not in my house, but, in my yard, if the contractor does not agree on terms that I choose, I can choose not to do business with that contractor. And I have complete discrepancy as an individual to make that decision based off of whatever factors that I choose reasonable. So I don't see how Uber doesn't have that same reservation. Sure, but you're not a big conglomerate. So they're a big company, so they have to pay people. That's not how it works. If that was how it works, then you wouldn't see people getting fired by the thousands from companies. You're not on the worker's side? Oh, God. It's not about being on anybody's side. It's about what makes sense. It's not about being on a side. Like, I'm not on anybody's side. What's the word for a company that has so much power over the business that they can force unreasonable working terms? What about this is, what, a monopoly? You're talking about a monopoly? But there isn't a monopoly. Now, if you want to argue that Uber and Lyft, and like there are taxi services as well, I think that, are there any other like ride-sharing services besides Uber and Lyft? I think those are like the two big ones, right? It's like probably 50-50. So you think that it's a monopoly, that they have a monopoly? So they should be regulated because they're a monopoly? I mean, maybe you could be right about that. I mean, I don't think that's what the video's even accusing them of. So like the only people that are saying that, it's not a monopoly, number one. But I understand the argument that like if two companies control 99% of the market share and they're not really competing against each other in a functional way, then they are functioning as a monopoly. You're right about that. I think that's true. That's like the Apple Play Store and the the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. I think that's the same thing. Sure. The need to pay their dues, no competition means price fixing. Well, I mean, it's very obvious they're not price fixing. I believe the confusion is that you can hire a contractor, set a price, and so on. But once it becomes regular, the issue is if the company is treating drivers as the wrong form of employee or contractor. So giving dynamic payment based off of previous work makes them an employee, not a contractor. That doesn't make sense to me either. It's about employee classification and how Uber is falsely calling their employees independent contractors in order to skip out on obligations to them. IRS definition, you are not an independent contractor if you perform services that can be controlled by an employer. I feel like services and controlled need to be defined there. I think that's too broad of a definition. The truth, they don't have to subject themselves, only works in a utopia. Well, I'm not talking about like, I'm saying like, are they breaking the law? Like, that's the only thing that I'm thinking about. Is this against the law? I don't see this being against the law. It seems like it's not. And I'm really just not understanding. I'm not understanding any of the arguments that people are giving me. Because like I think about like parallel examples in at least my mind, and it would immediately not make sense.
One thing, their own profits.
Of course.
Drivers are left out.
Uber and Lyft are saying we're not one company, right? We're just a platform, and all of our drivers are independent business people. Under our antitrust laws, they need to have the economic independence to set their own prices.
We heard something similar at our roundtable discussion after the experiment. Every participant wanted to be an independent contractor. They like the freedom.
Sure.
They also want Uber and Lyft to treat them like actual independent contractors.
When I don't have a control over the pricing and you keep calling me an independent contractor, there's something very wrong with that picture.
And for drivers dependent on the rideshare platforms to make a living, it's...
So he's saying that because these people don't have the negotiation ability inside of the deal, outside of being able to say no, then they're not an independent contractor? You see the difference? Not really. I'm going to be totally honest. Yeah, not really. Because they can say yes or no. I don't see how that distinction would logically mean somebody is or isn't an independent contractor or an employee. I don't see these two things being congruent. They don't have a choice. Well, everybody has a choice of employment because they're working there because they choose to work there. Yes and no is not a negotiation. Okay.
hard when you're making under minimum wage.
Okay.
Especially for people that do this full time. In California, they're working 70 to 80 hours just to put food on the table, which is really, really rough.
If you look at who's on the board of both of these companies, it tells you that we have nobody on our side, right?
Well, of course.
When the general counsel of Uber is Tony West and he's the brother-in-law of Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
then
all the people that are leading the company are just, it's all a big club and you're not in it. Yeah, absolutely.
It tells you that these companies are tight with government. Why does Uber win? Well, because it's rigged in their favor, right?
There's a reality where drivers could be actual independent contractors, set their own rates on these platforms, and compete for your business. But that's not our world. Yet. Instead, the companies are spending hundreds of millions of dollars rewriting state labor law to reinforce the idea that drivers aren't employees, while using the fine print to handle private challenges.
That's been absolutely essential to Uber's and Lyft's business model. So while they've tried to race to write laws to their benefit, they've also tried to protect themselves from public litigation through the fine print of their contracts and through arbitration clauses.
That's where David's case on behalf of the 3 drivers ended. A superior court sent it to private arbitration. The end result isn't public.
We should also be clear about is just because you're exempt from laws governing, for example, unemployment insurance premiums, that doesn't mean you're exempt from antitrust laws and competition laws.
That part I agree with. Now we're getting into things that I do agree with, is that if Uber and Lyft are basically price matching, which is pretty much price fixing, then yeah, it's a huge problem because nobody else in the market can compete. Absolutely.
Federal and state enforcers aren't subject to forced arbitration agreements. They can investigate and bring enforcement actions against these rideshare companies. It's likely also a violation of state competition law, especially in states like California that prohibit vertical price fixing. So the California Attorney General's office would also be in a prime position to investigate the issue and bring an enforcement action like that one.
But this issue of algorithmic pricing stretches beyond rideshare.
We're just at the beginning stages of what I feel is like a battle between the common folk and then that managerial class and upwards.
There's credible reporting that Walmart, Amazon, and McDonald's are all experimenting with the technology. Those companies employ
Wendy's got in trouble for this recently, where Wendy's was saying that they were going to change the prices for things dynamically, but not having them on the menu, and just change them based off of how many things they have in stock. Yeah, this is very true.
over 3 million people. In July, the FTC announced it was investigating surveillance pricing. That's the practice of companies using complex algorithms and untold data points to offer personalized pricing. The fear is that prices for something like children's Tylenol will suddenly skyrocket across major online stores just because you typed infant fever into Google. Why? Because retailers know you're desperate. The FTC is investigating Walmart, Amazon, and the leading technology vendors. We need to do the same thing, but for wages. The power of these giants lies in their ability to keep everyone, consumers, drivers, regulators, blindfolded. They're backed by billions of dollars worth of sophisticated algorithms and legal gymnastics, leaving us to fight in the dark. Maybe there's an innocent explanation to our fair experiment, but we won't know until the federal government shines a light.
It's like, yeah, I'm...
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. If you have ideas for stories you want us to uncover next, please drop them in the comments below.
I'm so confused about this. Dynamic pricing is a way for them to introduce higher prices just so they know that people will spend more during certain times. Yeah, of course. I think the blindfold is the problem. Please look further into this in your spare time. This is why so many workers across industries are upset and can't afford basic needs. Well, I mean, I understand that very well. I get that. I mean, that's the case everywhere. And this isn't just something with independent contractors. It's something with people that are employees, right? I mean, this is a problem with everybody. It's not like this is an Uber-specific issue. It lacks transparency. Well, like, does Uber have the obligation to tell you what other people are being paid? I feel like as a contractor, you don't have that obligation, right? Like, I don't think that they do. Yes, but they're not employees. Yeah, but they don't have that. They don't have that obligation even if they're not. This person is not understanding their employment. Yeah, I'm just really confused by this. Because, like, any of the argumentation that they use, I feel like if you apply it to a different situation, it wouldn't work. It's not simple, though that's why I'm trying to understand it. It works like Fiverr. If you say no, you get low ranked and you get SEO bombs, so you never have a chance to get any client again. Well, like, wouldn't that make sense if you worked for anybody else as an independent contractor? Like, if you hire a guy to do a job, like, let's say you're running, like, you're doing landscaping, right? No? Well, okay, so, like, follow my logic with this, right? So like if you have a landscaping company and you're hiring guys on to do a job and you constantly call a guy to do a job and he keeps saying no, wouldn't you just at a certain point stop calling him? It's not the same. How is it not the same? The laws for independent contractors are awful. They can't complain about how they're currently set up because Uber and Lyft is following the law. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. You don't understand? We have no option to put, I don't want $3 rides. You can get something as low as $2 where you live. Sure, but you also have the ability to say, no, I don't want to take that. Like, I know plenty of contractors, and I've heard plenty of stories where contractors are offered rates that are really low and they turn them down. Like, if a person has the ability to turn down a rate, then I don't see where the problem is, because nobody is acting out of any forced behavior. Like,